What's going on, everybody? This is the Black Trekker. Thank you for taking time out your morning, afternoon, or evening to sit in with me for a few ticks as I talk to you about the season finale of Star Trek Picard, Season 3, Episode 10, The Last Generation. I'm going to tell you the things that I liked about this particular episode, and I'm going to tell you about the things that I didn't like about this particular episode, and the surprising things about this particular episode. So, this takes place where they basically discover that the crew has been hijacked by the Borg. The Borg Queen is back, and she has been able to infiltrate the heart of Starfleet. They've been using transporters to be able to rewrite the code and the genetic makeup of many of Starfleet's personnel, especially the young personnel, younger than 25. And because of that, she has been able to rewrite the genetic makeup. And because of that, she is now able to switch them over to being Borg. Now, the interesting thing about this is the previous episode, episode 9, Vox. And Vox means the voice. And that's the name of Jack Crusher. That's his Borg name. So in this particular episode, they start off where they are trying to figure out what's going on. The president of the Federation, President Chekhov, has given out a general distress beacon, basically telling everybody, stay away from Earth. Earth is not a good idea to come to. We are being attacked. Our young people are turning into Borg left and right. And because of that, it would not be a good idea to come to the planet because you would be putting yourself in danger. And he had made a statement in relation to what his father had stated because his father was a part of the original Enterprise crew. And so with that being said, he was like, with hope, anything is possible. And then the transmission ends, and we are on the USS Enterprise D, traveling. Now they have located where the actual signal is being originated from. It's being originated from a Borg cube that's inside of Jupiter, which was surprising because in episode 8, episode 9, we were trying to figure out where is this cube at? Because when Jack warped away, I was thinking that he had opened up a transwarp conduit and went to, say, like the Delta Quadrant. But in actuality, it was in the Sol system. Surprisingly enough, the Borg were able to get into the Sol system without Starfleet noticing. And so that's what happened. So the Enterprise D is warping to be able to get to the location of where the signal is being generated, which is in Jupiter's orbit. And so they have a wonderful... One of the things I like, and I got to say, one of the things I did like was they had a wonderful panoramic view of the Borg cube. And everybody knows that Borg cubes are gigantic. I mean, if you look at some adversaries that are like in that the Federation deals with, like the Klingons, or you look at the Romulans, like the Derridex, it's a huge ship. It's like 1,600 meters. But by comparison to a Borg cube, that Borg cube is 3,000 meters. Absolutely unreal. So it pans out and you can see the Galaxy class. And the Galaxy class is a pretty mid-sized starship. It's pretty big. And it pans out and the Galaxy class is like a speck. I think amazing. Anyway, so they determined that they're not aware that the Queen is alive, but they determined that the signal is emanating from inside of the actual cube. And they also determined that Jack is down there. So what happens is that Picard, he has to get an away team down there. And he's like, I'm going to go. And so, of course, Riker is going to go with him. And then, of course, Worf is going to go. And Worf makes a comment, and Riker makes a comment. And Picard believes that this is going to be the last time that he's going to see his crew. So he says, it's been an honor serving with you. And this term is usually referred to in military terms when someone is leaving or when somebody is retiring or when something like that calamitous is going to occur. You always say that as a general farewell statement. And so Picard thinks this that, pretty much he's never going to see them again. So it's Worf, it's Admiral Picard, and it's Riker, and they're going down. So Riker and Worf's mission is to be able to interfere the actual signal that's being sent to the fleet in orbit of Earth, because the Federation fleet has been taken over by the Borg synchronization. Now, in the previous episode, Admiral Shelby, she had thought it was a good idea to have a fleet synchronization that would be able to have the fleet fight as one. Yeah, that was a stupid idea. Especially with her experience with the Borg. That was really quite dumb. But I guess nobody ain't want to say nothing to Admiral Shelby. But anyway, so they were trying to interrupt the signal because they had determined through also Dr. Beverly Crusher that Jack was the actual literal voice of the signal, and it was being sent out into pointing towards Earth. And also because the proximity of it, because Jupiter from Earth is not that far. I mean, in the terms of a species that can travel faster than light, like the Federation, rather the human species of the Federation, they can travel faster than light. So it only takes a couple of minutes for them at max warp to get to Jupiter. So it's nothing, but it's like almost line of sight to Earth. So with that being said, the signal is rampant. It's abrupt. It's all on all subspace frequencies. So what occurs is that they realize that it has to be interrupted. That's what the beaming down there is for. Picard is going down there, and he's finally on the actual Borg cube, and Jack is one level below him. And this is one thing I like about the transporters. The transporters are very active. They're very accurate in terms of being able to beam you where something is. Very accurate. So that's one of the more interesting technologies that Starfleet was able to create, and then subsequently everybody else was using in the galaxy. So that's why the Borg knew that if they were able to get their plan underway, then they would have a whole galaxy of, well, a half a galaxy, because you got to look at the alpha and the beta quadrant. And if you get the alpha and the beta quadrant assimilated as all Borg, then the rest of the galaxy, it doesn't stand a chance. And I don't care about who the rest of the galaxy is. You could have a Herodian, you could have whoever. You could even have the fluid space people, and they still won't stand a chance. So anyway, with that being said, so they beam down, and Picard tells Riker, and there's a sentiment between them, because, Riker almost looks at Picard as like a father figure. And Picard knows this, and Picard wants to say, I love you, but he doesn't say that. And so he says, I have to go be a father now. And Riker's like, I know. And so what happens is Worf, he's somber, and he's like, today is a good day to die because, I get to say the Earth again. And then on top of that, I get to go into battle with my friends, which is a great thing for a Klingon. So, him and Riker are going down to the chamber room where the actual resonance field is being created to actually change and woo the rest of Starfleet. Because remember, that resonance field is also being able to change the young people and make them, basically zombies of the Borg. So Picard is doing that. Meanwhile, back on the Enterprise D, they're looking at where the actual main power system is. And it's kind of like a puzzle, but it's kind of like a puzzle that travels around. And they're saying that Geordi's saying it's almost impossible to be able to navigate all of that. Now, Picard kept data on the ship for a particular reason, because he knew the unexpected would have come. He knows that something's going to come up and they might need Data's fast brain. Because Data's brain, although it's not as equivalent and as powerful as the Enterprise D's computing abilities, is next best thing to it. So if anybody can do it, it's Data. So Data says basically, I got a gut feeling I could do it. And Geordi's like, a gut feeling? And Data's like, yeah, I got a gut feeling I could do it. And so Data has to basically convince Troy and also Beverly and also Commodore LaForge. I want to make sure I got his rank right. I don't want LaForge trying to look for me. So Commodore LaForge is ranked correctly. And so then what happens is that they say, okay, fine, all right. And then Counsel Troy can almost sense fun coming from Data because of the fact that he is able to do something that he enjoys, which is, sticking it to the Borg. So back on Earth, the space dock is almost about to be destroyed. Now, it's absolutely amazing. It doesn't go into great detail about how many ships is in the actual overall fleet. I would say it doesn't look like more than 100, which leads me to believe that all of the Starfleet Federation fleet was not there. Because you have to look back to the Dominion War. They had amassed over 100. No, that's a small number. They had amassed over 700 ships. And this is 35 years later. So I would only assume that the Federation fleet would be in the hundreds, if not the thousands. Just to say, I mean, I know the ships would be far more powerful than their predecessors in the Dominion War, but I would also say that their ships would be, a lot more numbered. It would be hundreds, if not thousands of them, because the Federation, even though they're not a colonizing power, they're not a power that's based off of aggressive progression, like the Dominion, or perhaps even like the Herodian, as I spoke before, or the Klingon Empire. They are a power nonetheless, and they would need a fleet that's pretty large because the Federation is about 1,500 light years in diameter. So if you only have a fleet of, say, 100 ships, that's not, even if you do have faster than light technology, that's not big enough to be able to patrol and protect an area that big. So you would need, hundreds, if not thousands of ships to be able to patrol that and protect all the individual member worlds in a known space. So I would conclude that at this particular time, they didn't send their whole fleet. They probably sent all of their ships that were human-based, or, pretty much human-based, to the Sol system, but not all of them. That would have been ridiculous. And that's one of the things that I have it down, because I don't think that was all of Starfleet's ships. No way, no how. That would be crazy. And then also, it would be visually difficult to be able to quantify all of the Federation ships on screen. But I guess that would be like the main fleet that is patrolling, like, I don't know, a few light years or something like that, like 30 light years or 50 light years, but nothing to the extent of the whole Federation. That's preposterous. But anyway, the USS Titan, remember, has a cloaking device from the previous episode, Vox, and the episode before that, The Surrender. They have a cloaking device. So finally, what 7 and 9 does is it's about 5 regular people that haven't been assimilated. And also because of the fact that some of them are, well, rather all of them are over the age of 25, so they're not affected by the Borg's process, the genetic process. So they're fighting their way. They're getting to a turbolift. They get to the bridge. They basically have developed, and I thought the Borg were initially beaming out, but in actuality, what happened is that they had tied their transporters to their phasers. So every time they fired, they beamed out. That was pretty inventive. I didn't even think of that, but that was pretty inventive. So what happened is that they beamed out, and they beamed them to the transporter room. I think transporter number 1. And what they did was that's kind of like a makeshift like prison or makeshift jail, because we have to remember they were under the control of the Borg based off of genetic modifications, but they were not actually Borg fully. They were just it was like a switch that turned them on, and hopefully there'll be a switch to turn them off. So with that being said, they were still effectively regular people. So you don't want to kill them because they're still a part of your crew. So Commander Annika Hansen, aka Commander 7 of 9, she devised this, and it was pretty brilliant. And so they were in a containment area, and they were trying to figure out, like, basically, like, how do we get the ship off of this synchronization nonsense? Because again, as I stated, the synchronization idea was stupid, dumb, backwards, just crazy. Anyway, so that's what they were trying to figure out. And then they figured out, basically, kind of what I said before, is line of sight. The synchronization process doesn't work unless you're directly in front of another ship. And so once they engage the cloak, it disengages. The Borg ain't thinking about that. But anyway, so they engage the cloak. And once they engage the cloak, they realize that they have to start attacking the ships, because what's going to happen is that they're going to eventually destroy space dock. And then also the shields are going to be down, and then they're going to also start attacking Earth itself, Earth proper. Because now, another down that I have is this. Why is Earth's shields tied into the space dock? I mean, why wouldn't it have just separate planetary shields that would protect the planet from being attacked? Just my thoughts. If space docks shields are down, then that means that the Earth shields are down? That's dumb. Anyway, so space dock is holding its own temporarily. But in the next scene, space dock shields are dropped. And now the Borg have been able to make it into the point of being able to attack Earth proper. because the Titan crew realizes, because they're attacking and they're running and they're attacking and they're running, but the Borg aren't stupid. The Borg are able to extrapolate where their next location is going to be. And they are pretty much accurate because they were able to shoot, I guess, in the direction that the ship was about to go to next. And then their shields and their cloak is down. So they're pretty much dead in the water. Now, what happens is that the Enterprise is now being controlled by Data, and he's navigating through the Borg ship. Now, interesting visual scene that occurred. I did not know the Borg inside of the actual cube had weapon platforms, and the weapons platforms were firing. And this also goes back to the fact of the Enterprise D and also the fact of the actual Borg cube. A lot of people only talk about the cast proper, but the Enterprise D is also a part of the cast. I mean, when you see it, when I saw it in Vox, it gave off a euphoric type of feeling because of the fact that it's been so long since I've seen her. Now, the Enterprise D is a classy ship, classy indeed. And so what happens is the Enterprise D is being navigated by Data. Meanwhile, it's firing. The Enterprise D was being, the weapons officer at the time was Beverly Crusher. And I don't know, people were saying that the weapon systems were old and outdated and whatnot, but I don't know. I think Commodore LaForge put some up-to-date weapon systems in there because that Enterprise D was causing some damage to that Borg cube, especially on that scene where it was strafing the surface and firing. It was a wrap. And the weapons were absolutely putting some damage onto the Borg because when they were going in, a lot of areas of the Borg cube was being destroyed. So that lets me know that the torpedoes that were being loaded by the droids or the bots was pretty powerful, and the phasers had been upgraded. I don't know if they were type 13 or type 15 or whatever, but they weren't type 12 or type 11s like the original Enterprise D. No way, no how. And then also the shields were very powerful because of the fact that when they had got direct hits from the Borg, direct hits, it was only dropped to like 64%. So that's pretty stout. Anyway, so Data's navigating, and then they finally get to the actual heart of where this actual beacon is being transmitted. It's a power source. And Geordi is looking at it like, okay, we could destroy this, but then we're also going to kill everybody that's here. And then, so they're kind of like deliberating. And so Picard finally is there, and he sees the Queen. She looks, compared to the Queen in First Contact, she looks terrible. Like, dang, she looks bad. I guess the virus that was left by the by Janeway from the future really did a number on the Borg because of the simple fact that she looked at like brutal. Now, don't get me wrong. The lady who played the Borg Queen in the previous episode, season, she was nice looking. And the lady who played the Queen in First Contact, she was, aesthetically, she wasn't bad looking. So I could see why Locutus was, kind of stick around with her a little bit. But anyway, but this one, she looked terrible. Ugh. And so there it was, Jack. He was actually a full-born drone, giving out orders and commands, telling where to fire. And the Queen had mentioned that, assimilation is not our future. Assimilation is not our future. Evolving is. Now, my only problem with that logic is this. Why did it take the Borg so many centuries to realize that? Yeah, you can assimilate, but you got to go through the whole process of fighting somebody, and then they don't want to do it. It's going to be against their will. And then you also create, and you build up a bad reputation of just attacking civilizations, and nobody's going to want to join it. Everybody's going to be against you. So with that being said, she realized the error in her ways. And, Picard was talking like, listen, take me, let him go, take me. And she was like, I don't want you, dude, man. I don't want you. Even though she ain't going to be able to get nobody else. Not looking like that. Anyway, so she dismisses what Picard is saying. She was like, you're finally home, the family. I have my son, and then I also have you. We're a family. Now, she had made also a statement that the Borg had been like I guess dying and like floating in space. My problem with this logic and this rationale is this. So you're telling me that Janeway brought a pathogen from the future, basically this time zone, back to the Borg in the past. And then that crippled the Borg so much they didn't have an ability to adapt. Adapting is like the gold standard of the Borg. They adapt eventually. It took them 35 years and they still ain't adapt. Whoa. Computer processing ability in the 25th century came a long way to being able to help the Federation. So I got to say I was a bit skeptical on that, but I mean, I guess it's true. It's on screen. It's canon. So the Borg definitely was licking their wounds for a long time. And if the Federation is capable of coming up with something like that, that's some seriously innovative technology that can be crippling to any other culture, any other race. They'll never recover. So anyway, the Borg are in shambles. The Queen, she looks terrible. She's not strong. She's not confident like she was. So anyway, back to the Enterprise D. The Enterprise D fires after Beverly Crusher understands that she has to fire because otherwise everybody on Earth is going to be doomed too. So they fire. Boom. And she always said, if the Federation falls, if Earth falls, everybody falls, the whole galaxy. So they can't let that happen. So what happens is that they fire. And basically it's going to give them like a minute. So in this same time, it pans back to Jack and it pans back to Picard. Jack is in some kind of like simulated green like hallucination. And he's like, it's perfect. It's quiet. It's serene. It's blissful. And Picard like, this is all fake, son. This is all fake. This ain't real life. And he was like, but listen, if you're not going nowhere, I'm not going nowhere until the end. And Picard is basically saying like, look, if I got to die, I'm going to die. I'm going to die with you. You're my son. And that's the perfect way to go out if you're a parent. Perfectly go out with your kid. And so he gives his son a big hug. And then Jack starts having all these memory flashbacks of his time with his mom and then also meeting his dad. And the emotions take over. And Jack's like, nah, fuck that. I don't want to go out like this. And so basically he snaps out of whatever control the Queen had. He breaks all of his restraints. And then he sees his father right there with this like plug in his neck. And he's like partially assimilated. And then he just yanks that out of his neck. It's like, let's get out of here, Dad. And so maybe like a good 30 yards away is Worf. And he sees Picard because they was going to try to come and save Picard. And they're like, well, I guess this is the end. And Riker was saying, farewell, Musadi. And he was like, me and our son will be waiting for you. And then out of nowhere, now this kind of felt like it was stole from Insurrection. This was stole from Insurrection where the Enterprise E came into the ship. Picard was running. He looks up and the Enterprise E swoops down, literally, beams him up, and then he escapes from the explosion. This is actually probably like a shout out to that particular movie and that particular scene. Because what happens is that the Enterprise E, they look up and they can see the Enterprise E swooping in, and then it kind of like hovers for like 5 seconds maybe, and you can see like the pristine shape of the Enterprise D and the sails and the undercarriage of the engine compartment, and you're like, wow. And they look up and then Jack's like, oh, that's the Enterprise D. That's the Enterprise D. And they beam up and the Queen is like, no, yeah, you dumbass, you ain't expect the Enterprise D. And so the Borg cube is blowing up and all over the place. And then you see a little speck get bigger, 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 and it's zooming by, and it's the Enterprise D. And then what happens is it pans out, and then you see the Enterprise, it seems like it's a lot of debris. And then you see Earth, so it's debris. And I don't know if it's from the ships that were being attacked by the Titan or what, but there's a debris, and then the USS Titan is right next to the Enterprise D. The USS Titan is kind of big. It's not as big as the Enterprise D, absolutely not. But the Enterprise D is there. And then what happens is that it pans to another scene, and it's Admiral Tuvok. And Admiral Tuvok is with Commander 7 of 9. And so she's basically like, okay. And he was like, yeah, the crew of the USS Enterprise D has been posthumously given, what's the word? They saved the world. They saved the whole entire galaxy literally from the Borg. So they gave them, a reprieve. They they made it where they don't have to go to jail. They don't have to be in trouble. They get awards. So that's what happened. They got they got something. I forget. I lose the thought of my mind right now. But they got a repeal from being held as criminals and thieves. And so what happens is that 7 of 9 is like, well, I guess, this means I'm going to have to resign. And I'll be like, I'm about to resign from Starfleet. And Tuvok looks at her like, no, that ain't about to happen. You ain't about to resign. And so he has a coin. It's not a coin, but it's actually like a projector. He slides it over to her and he was like, this is your review from your previous XO. And, executive officer or CO, commanding officer. And he presses it and it's Captain Shaw. Captain Shaw is basically talking about how, 7 of 9, she is from the new school. 7 of 9 doesn't follow. He's old school. He follows stuff by the book and he was like, but, because no matter what you want to say about Shaw, he's a straight shooter, but he's also honorable in his character and how he conducts himself and how he perceives people. And he perceived, he said, Commander Annika Hansen, aka 7 of 9, he was like, but, when we get back to Space Dock, I want to be requesting that she gets promoted to captain. And then she was surprised by that. And so then Admiral Tuvok is like a request for, no, he didn't say that. He said dismissal denied. So basically, she was saying like, I'll resign from resignation denied from Starfleet. And he was like, nah, you ain't gonna resign from Starfleet, captain. And he basically promoted her to captain. So, with the endorsement of her old CO Shaw, and then also from Tuvok, because she did help. The USS Titan helped save Earth, literally. Even though the Enterprise crew did the majority of the work, they still tried to fight the actual fleet in orbit to be able to stop them from, 1, destroying Space Dock, 2, from preventing them being able to take over Earth proper. So that right there was a big nod, and she got promoted. So after that, it pans back, and the crew, they're together again, and they're talking, and they're enjoying themselves. And then it pans to another scene. And another scene is this. It's Beverly Crusher, and it's also, It's Beverly Crusher. And they're talking about how they have been able to remove the actual Borg genetic information that was used by the Borg using the transporter systems. And who was able to come up with that? It was Admiral Beverly Crusher. They promoted her. I mean, come on now. What else can you do? You got to promote her. She's in Starfleet. She's like basically like a captain. She needed to be an admiral, and she got promoted to like Admiral of Starfleet Medical. So she the woman. She the boss lady when it comes to Starfleet Medical. And so she created a program for being able to remove the Borg code, but then also being able to detect changelings. And so it's a bunch of young people on a transporter pad, and they're being energized and then re-energized, rematerialized actually on it. And then they get rid of the Borg code. But then, right when they was trying to, it was one guy, and he had got stopped in his face because it detected that he was a changeling. So they was able to detect the changelings. Yeah, get them bastards off our ships, hold them in imprisonment, and then get in contact with the actual Great Link and have them take them bastards back to the Delta Quadrant or take them back to the Gamma Quadrant. Yeah, all day, do that. So she developed that technology. So now the Federation has that implemented on all ships, all stations, everywhere, all bases. So to prevent the potential of a changeling threat and also getting in contact with the Great Link. So that works. Now they didn't mention the Great Link, but I'm pretty sure they're going to get in contact with the Great Link and let them know about this. Because, the Federation and the changelings proper are at peace. And they probably wanted to know why they was doing this. But anyway, so then it pans to another scene, and it's Admiral Crusher and Admiral Picard, and then also Jack. And Jack, they're on a shuttle, and they're inside of Space Dock. Space Dock 1 that's over Earth. I guess they rebuilt it and also repaired all of the damage, because this is literally a year later. This is literally 1 year later. So I'm assuming everything that was damaged on Space Dock has been repaired. The Titan's been repaired. And then what happens is that that it shows that. And so they're on there and they're traveling through the space dock, and he's pacing. And Picard makes a statement about how he used to pace nearly a light year before he had his first, posting. And what happened is that he talks about names are really like, because Jack made a statement about how my family name helped me to be able to get promoted in the Starfleet because now he's an ensign. Yeah, if your mom's an admiral and if your dad's an admiral and you've saved the Earth on numerous occasions, I really do think that Starfleet proper is going to be like, yeah, let's let the son, because he did help, because he made a choice. He made a choice to be able to resist the Borg and fight the Borg to be able to save Earth. So that right there, oh, he has an ambition to be in Starfleet? Yeah, bring him down. He can become in Starfleet, absolutely. And that's what happened. Starfleet Command, the Admiralty, made a decision. Let's show him some respect, and let's show his family some respect, because they did save Earth again. So that's what happened. But he was like, names do matter. Names do matter a lot. And then Beverly was like, especially when it comes to fan service, they was talking to the fans literally. And he was smiling, and then Picard looks, and it's the Titan. I thought it was going to be another. Now, for full transparency, I thought it was going to be another ship. I figured that it was going to be the Enterprise G. But I was figuring like, okay, it would be a new class, like a new ship for the Enterprise G. But it wasn't. It was the USS Titan. And he was like, that's the Titan. And he was like, no. It was not the USS Titan. The Starfleet Command rechristened the ship. And it was the USS NC-701G. So it was the Enterprise G. That's what it was. So it's no longer the Titan. It's the USS Enterprise G. And so what happens is they go on one of the rear shuttle bays, and then what happens is that he is panning back to Jack. Jack's on the bridge, and he's talking about, let's go to Metalis Prime, armed phasers, armed photon torpedoes, and he's sitting in the captain's chair. And then 709's like, get out, because he's an ensign, he ain't really got no pool. And so it's 709 and it's Ralphie. I believe Ralphie would be like a commander now. So it's 709, she's captain, and then Ralphie's like the first officer. And then Jack is kind of like she said a counselor or whatever to the captain. And so he sits down, and it pans off to the next scene. And the next scene is where they are in the holodeck, and they're having a toast. The old crew, the old NC-701D crew, and they're having a toast. And they're basically, celebrating all of the times they've been together and what they've went through and what they've experienced. And what happens is that they're playing cards. Now, Picard in TNG never played cards. He never played cards. But, and this being the last episode in the season finale, he is playing cards. And, he wins. So that lets you know that Picard knew how to play cards all along. And they was pretty lucky, because Picard would probably clean house, and they would have been disgruntled ass employees because Picard used to win so much. Although back in the day, Riker was the one that won a lot. But anyway, yeah. So it pans up and it's spinning, and then that's the end. But then the next scene is where the USS Titan is. It's a beautiful shot, by the way. I liked this shot. Beautiful shot. It looks like of a red giant, and it's glowing. It's fiery, and although we do know that suns are nuclear reactors, not actual fireballs, and it's showing Jack, and he's unpacking, and he has a beautiful eagle moss. Looks like it's a replica of the USS Enterprise D. Because come on now, the USS Enterprise D saved the Federation. And if truth be told, I know they made the NC-701G for the ship for the next class of the flagship, the USS Titan. Now, my one down for that is that all of the classes before have been significantly bigger, and they've been more powerful and modern. So I'm just assuming perhaps Starfleet has the most technologically state-of-the-art weapon systems on the new Enterprise G now. I just hope. Now, maybe this is a prelude to the fact that the next Star Trek series will be the USS Enterprise G. Hopefully, that would be good, with the captain as Captain 7. Now, with that being said, so he's unpacking his stuff, and there's a voice. Aren't you an old chip off the old block? And he points his phaser, and he looks and he's like, aren't you Q? And he lowers his weapon like, it's Q. Q is back. Q is back. We thought in the last episode of season 2, that Q was dead. He was dying. But he said, how linear thinking do you, he's basically like, stop thinking linearly. Q's don't like you do. And he was like, and he said, young mortal. Young mortal. That was outstanding. That's outstanding.
What about you?
Here it is.
I thought you were dead.
Oh. And here I was hoping the next generation wouldn't think so linearly. Young mortal.
Young mortal. So Q's back. So that opens up a whole new dynamic of what's going to happen in Star Trek in the future of the franchise. Because he says that the trial for humanity is over. So the possibilities for humans to explore in the galaxy and transition into evolve into something the next level is certain. But he was like, you are the next generation of the Picards. Because even though his name is Jack Crusher, he's still a Picard. He might as well be Jack Crusher Picard, because his father is Picard. And Q has an affinity for Picard. He is absolutely enamored by Picard. And like Q said in season 2, he said even gods have favorites. And although the Q are not gods, Q, he absolutely has an affinity for Picard. And that's great because he looks at Picard kind of like like a mentor. Looks at his protege. But anyway, yeah, Q is back. So that right there is, and Q is basically alluding like his story has not been written yet. So he's taking an interest in his son. And I'm pretty sure if there was going to be another episode, it'll be revealed that Jack told his father that Q made him a visit. And this is great, I don't know what's going to happen with the rest of Star Trek, but Q is back. So that means anything can happen. With that being said, that wraps up the series of Star Trek Picard, season 3. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I will be getting back with all of y'all with the next science fiction shows. I will be expanding beyond Star Trek. I will be expanding into Star Wars and other science fiction shows, just so you can keep seeing my marvelous face. And then, from there, when Strange New Worlds comes out on June 5th, I'll be definitely giving a preview of that and a review of that. And also I'll be doing spoilers for the preview episodes that'll be released. With that being said, I thank you for your time. Like, share, and subscribe, and live long and prosper.